So, boys, we get started with the news out of Indianapolis. According to Coach Frank Reich, Carson Wentz is going to be out 5 to 12 weeks. He's going to undergo foot surgery. So we got the report over the weekend that he was going to decide about having surgery on his foot. He is opting to have surgery. Reich saying that this is an old injury that resurfaced for Wentz. And so the timetable puts him at 5 to 12 weeks on the sidelines, which is clearly going to get into the start of the season. So when we hear this news, what does this mean for the Indianapolis Colts, a team that clearly has playoff implications? A team that's looking to make the playoffs once again. They lose Phillip Rivers to retirement, but now they have Carson Wentz, but they're not going to have Carson Wentz to potentially start the season. So, Dave, what do you think about this Colts offense?
He might be gone for 1 week of the regular season. He might be gone for 10 weeks of the regular season. This is nuts. It makes me frustrated and nervous to take anybody in this offense outside of Jonathan Taylor. I still like Jonathan Taylor. I want to have him on my fantasy team, and I still view him as a first-round pick. The guy was a monster in his last 6 games with Phillip Rivers as his quarterback. I think the Colts have to make a move. I don't think they can go into the season with Jacob Eason as their quarterback. If they do, no one's going to want anything to do with Michael Pittman or T.Y. Hilton. It's a matter of how they replace Carson Wentz. What do they do at quarterback, and what could that do to help Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton, those guys get their numbers up?
Yeah, man, you say T.Y. Hilton. I drafted a lot of T.Y. Hilton in round 10, round 11. Really felt like I was stealing. This really hurts his value. It hurts Pittman's value. I moved them from the 40s, my rankings, down to the 50s. I actually moved Jonathan Taylor in full PPR outside of my top 12. I think he's an early round 2 pick. I'm just scared. This could be a really bad Colts offense with 8 men on the box on every single play. I still think he's going to be fantastic. But I do think he's going to be in a lot of bad game scripts. He's still going to be sharing a little bit with Nyheim Hines, and they're not going to score near as many points as long as Jacob Eason looks like the QB1.
So we'll get into Jonathan Taylor in a second, but let's start with the quarterback situation. You mentioned Jacob Eason, and we had this discussion on our Fantasy Football Today podcast. We are hoping Carson Wentz is going to bounce back and play like that MVP caliber quarterback we saw before the ACL tear, before the back injury became a problem. Last year was a complete disaster for him. Totally understandable. The offensive line was a joke. The receiving corps was a joke. We thought, okay, he goes to the Colts. He gets behind this offensive line. He gets back with the coach he knows in Frank Reich, and all of a sudden he's going to be fixed. What if he was going to just be bad to begin with again, and really the trajectory that we've seen his career on was maybe just never going to get back to that level? What if Jacob Eason is better than maybe Carson Wentz could be? What if they go out and they make a move and they get a Nick Foles, who clearly the Bears don't need after drafting Justin Fields and bringing in Andy Dalton, and maybe they go get a guy like a Gardner Minshew, who the Jaguars don't need, and we'll find out from Pete Prisco today if that's going to be a potential option if Jacksonville will be willing to move him to another team in the division. What if the quarterback play maybe isn't as bad as we think because we were hoping for Carson Wentz to be better? Heath, could the offense still be maybe competent and successful with a different quarterback other than Wentz?
Yeah, I have an easier time believing that maybe one of those guys can be better than what Carson Wentz was last year than that they could have the upside that we were hoping for from Carson Wentz this year. I was ranking these guys as if we were going to get a bounce back from Carson Wentz because that was the worst year of his career. And you look at how the Eagles fantasy players performed in that worst year of his career, and it's evident. I mean, they don't have a running back in the top 20. They don't have a wide receiver probably in the top 40, and their tight ends were kind of hit or miss all season long. So, yes, if they were to go, I mean, you know me, I'd say if they go get Gardner Minshew, then I'd be a little bit more excited about T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman. Nick Foles isn't going to move the needle very much for me because he's been absolutely dreadful each of the past 2 years when he's had a chance to play.
Except when he's been with Frank Reich, though, in that Super Bowl run for Philadelphia. All right, Dave, so let's get a little bit more into Jonathan Taylor because we were all drafting him as a first-round pick. In some cases, I think you had him as high as number 4. Where does he go now?
I think he's still top 10. I don't have a problem taking him anywhere from 6 on, regardless of format. I think he's still a really good player. I think this offensive line, provided that, Quentin Nelson dinged his foot in practice. Hopefully he's okay. Ryan Kelly, their center, hopefully he's fine. Hopefully get their left tackle situation fixed. It's still a good offensive line. And Jonathan Taylor is a really good football player. You saw it late last season in his final 6 games, 8 total touchdowns, over 800 total yards. You really want to leave somebody like that on the shelf just because it's not going to be Carson Wentz at quarterback. Carson Wentz wasn't going to be great anyway. He would have been better than Phillip Rivers, but I think here's what I'm saying.
Was good, though.
He was good toward the end, and so was Jonathan Taylor, so it meshed nicely. I'd like to see – I kind of want to reserve judgment on how good or bad I feel about Taylor until I see what the Colts do next at quarterback. And if they have a decent – if they get Nick Foles, I'm going to be happy with Jonathan Taylor. He'll be 6, just where I have him right now. But if they stick with Jacob Eason, I'm going to be a little bit nervous about him. That schedule, we showed it earlier, it's tough. They've got the Rams in the first couple of weeks of the season. The Titans are in there twice in the first half of the season. 49ers are in there. Dolphins weapons are in there. It's going to be worse for the passing game than it is the run game. I still like Jonathan Taylor. I think you've got him ranked too low.
It's really, really easy for me to put him behind McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler. Those 7, I don't have.
I'm with you.
Like, there's just not even a thought. It gets more difficult for me when you get to the Joe Mixon, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb range, because those guys all have a flaw or two as well. And I think Taylor quite obviously has a flaw until, like, if they go get a better quarterback, then yeah, I would agree. Maybe not quite as much. But playing on an offense that will be this bad, at least what we think, it scares me. I can't take him before the end of round 1. I'd prefer to take him after those first 4 wide receivers in full PPR as well, so I'd put him around 15.
I put Nick Chubb ahead of him in non-PPR just because I think Chubb as a runner is better than Jonathan Taylor right now, and we know the offensive line for the Browns is great, and Chubb just got his 3-year contract extension, so he should be happy and motivated to have a big season. I'm with you on the other guys in PPR. You can even make a case maybe Najee Harris should go ahead of him. I know some people are a little different on how they view Harris, but still, again, what was Taylor last year? A rookie who performed very well in an offense that actually catered to his skill set, and we think the Steelers are going to have an offense that caters to Najee Harris' skill set without the offensive line. But again, that offensive line might be better than we think. We'll find out from Brian McFadden about that when it comes to Najee Harris. We're going to have Jonathan Jones, our CBS Sports NFL insider, join us in a minute. He'll give us maybe the take on what will the Colts do at quarterback. But I don't think we should operate as if maybe the Colts have to make a move at quarterback, because if it is 5 weeks, and he's only out maybe the first game or two, they're going to stick with Jacob Eason and the guys that they have, unless somebody like a Nick Foles is cut, or maybe Gardner Minshew is cut. Why would they give up draft capital to go get somebody? It's not like Wentz is out for the season. So, again, we're giving you the negative side of things, obviously, based on the news today. But if Wentz is back and the foot is better, and, according to Frank Reich, again, this was a broken bone that came loose and caused pain. And so maybe getting this whole thing fixed, enough rehab time potentially, he could be back better than ever. Maybe this was part of the problem that he had last year. Remember, he's still coming back from the back injury, the knee injury, he got beat up that he overcame in Philadelphia. So we'll see. Let's get back to the wide receivers, though, because Pittman was a guy that had some sleeper appeal coming into the season off his strong playoff game against Buffalo and that loss. Did some nice things. Not a huge statistical rookie season, but did some nice things. T.Y. Hilton actually finished strong with the way Rivers played, and Jonathan Taylor as well. When you look at those two guys, Paris Campbell's a guy that a lot of fantasy players are excited about, just given the draft capital that the Colts spent on him a couple years ago. Injuries have killed him, only 9 games over the course of his 2 seasons in the NFL. But entering his 3rd season, he could have some appeal. So, Heath, quickly, if Wentz is fine by, let's say, week 2 or 3, can you still get really good value on those guys?
Oh, I think so. And I told Dave before, like, this is going to be a situation where I move those guys down and I'm still drafting them because everybody else moved them down 2 rounds as well. I think if they're likely going to be available, T.Y. Hilton for sure in round 12 or later, I'm still going to throw a dart at him in that range because you're mostly drafting players you're going to cut anyway after round 12. I don't know about Pittman. It'll be interesting to see where his ADP settles in because he was going about 3 rounds ahead of T.Y. Hilton in the round 8 range. If he falls into the double-digit range, then I think he's still a good sleeper option. Anything earlier than that, I'm going to pass.
And again, nice thing is that a lot of fantasy managers not doing their drafts now. They're doing that in August.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.